Admiral Menon, there have been some troubling reports also, and we've heard from our sources as well, that there has been a kind of relationship breakdown between, the leadership in, in the MOD and the leadership in naval headquarters. Do you think that's the case, sir? I mean, both the people we're talking about, A.K. Antony as well as Admiral Joshi, are both known to be, men of integrity, people who've led austere lives. What do you think went wrong? Because there is speculation that there was a sort of breakdown in that very sensitive relationship, sir.
I have never known the relationship between the Ministry of Defence and Service Headquarters to be good. It has always been bad. Occasionally it becomes troublingly bad. But there is a systematic breakdown in the way the Ministry of Defence handles Services Headquarters. This is a well-known fact.
Admiral Menon, you seem to suggest that Admiral DK Joshi has been made the scapegoat in this entire affair. Do you think this is not going to go down well with the Navy and is going to bring down the morale of the forces?
It's going to bring down the morale of the forces. But I will say this, that the system can take it. The system can take a lot of shocks. And in that sense, the naval system will absorb the shock. And the Navy will say that at least in our case, there was a chief who was willing to take symbolic responsibility. That they will take credit for that too. But their morale will certainly be affected by the fact that the chief resigned.
Admiral Menon, just stay with us. I want to go across to Vice Admiral Madanjit Singh, former chief of the Navy's Western Naval Command. Admiral Singh, what do you make of the Navy chief's resignation right now? It's the first time in the Navy's history that a chief has demitted office, owning moral responsibility for this spate of accidents, sir.
Yeah, it's happened for the first time in our Navy, but there have been other service chiefs in other countries who, when they have been a series of accidents or something which of serious nature, and they have found it an honourable thing to do. And in this particular case, I think Admiral Joshi has done the honourable thing, because some of these, or many of these accidents have taken place in his watch.
But
it's nothing. I mean, many of us, if we were in a similar circumstances, would take similar steps.
But one of the sense that we're getting is that, Admiral Singh, that the Navy chief was asked to quit. He wasn't really given an option. Do you think that this also, seems to suggest the kind of relationship between the Ministry of Defence and the Navy?
No, a relationship between the Ministry of Defence and the Service Headquarters has never been what it should be. For several years, I was a member of the task force under Mr. Arun Singh when this issue was discussed there. We never seemed to make a dent in it. If the service chiefs feel that they're not part of the system, and that also makes the rest of the service also not part of the system, and the people who seem to be calling the shots have no accountability. They have no accountability. Have you heard of any senior bureaucrat being sacked from his job? Never. It's not happened in our country. There have been several more serious cases which have occurred. No head has rolled. There was a 2611 in Bombay. Whose head rolled? Nobody.
Admiral Menon, I have a question for you. Do these accidents in the submarine arm, I mean, you have two major accidents in the last 6 months. Does this worry you at a time when the Navy is going to be entrusted with nuclear submarines? You have one nuclear submarine operational. You will have 3 more in the coming years. I mean, does this poor safety record of submarines particularly worry you? I mean, considering you were from the submarine arm.
In the sense that what worries me is the fact that this class of submarine came into the Navy almost 30 years ago, and the fact that its replacement, the Scorpion, should have been commissioned into the Navy already, and there has been a delay of 3 years. And as Admiral Madanjit Singh quite rightly said, who is accountable for the fact that the replacement submarine project has been delayed by 3 years? It is the Ministry of Defence. Nothing happens to these people.
Admiral Singh, if I could come back to you for just a moment, this is going to be a transitory phase for the Indian Navy. You just mentioned that this has happened in other navies in the past. In the last 6 months, we've seen unprecedented scrutiny, not just in the media, but also as far as the MOD has been concerned, in activities as far as the Navy is concerned, as far as safety issues are concerned, as far as discipline and command and control issues are concerned. How much of an impact is this going to have on morale and safety going forward? Because Admiral Menon says that the Navy Chief has been made a scapegoat just for short-term gains by this government, Admiral Singh.
No, I mean, I can't comment on that because I'm not aware of the, whether somebody told him to resign or he took it upon himself to, as an honorable thing to do. But let me tell you, let me recall one of the incidents where, widely reported in the media, print and electronic, that, so-and-so submarine had touched, had gone aground in Bombay Harbour. Nobody went beyond that. Do you know that the Ministry of Defence did not sanction the dredging of naval dockyard Bombay for the last 4 years?
So,
I mean, the dockyard has not been dredged for the last 4 years, and if the money is not sanctioned or some, Babu type is sitting on some file waiting for, something to happen, then there is an accountability issue. I mean, the accountability does not rest only in, senior naval authorities.
Admiral Singh, are you trying to suggest that the Ministry of Defence should have taken equal responsibility and not just the Naval Chief?
Yes, if it is true so, I don't know. I don't know what there were some material issues on this, like Admiral Menon has already said. These submarines are 30 years old. In the late 90s, the Navy had put out a submarine development plan which sought so many submarines to be constructed in India primarily to replace the aging submarines. It has taken more than 10 years to get anywhere near that, and now, as we said, the Scorpion submarine, the first one, is expected now to come up in 2016, and the follow-on, or whether we make more of those or make some other submarine, the decision is still pending. Nothing has moved in the last 3-4 years.
We also have General Shankar Rao Choudhry joining us on the phone line. General, unprecedented step being taken by the Naval Chief. There are some who are suggesting that he has been made a scapegoat in this entire affair and that the Ministry of Defence should have taken equal responsibility.
Well, firstly, I compliment Admiral Joshi for this unprecedented step of upholding the highest traditions of the service. It is, I think, the first time I think it's happened. I think it's the first time, if I'm not wrong, I cannot recollect offhand. But then, as you said, the responsibility for the defense of the country, the organization of the Navy, the equipment supplied to it, the contracts entered into are done entirely by the Ministry of Defense. And the person at the head of the Ministry of Defense is firstly the Defense Secretary and secondly the Defense Minister. Now, this resignation is actually symbolic. It is a gesture of almost despair by the head of a service at the state of the service that he heads. Planning has been carried out for decade after decade, and the planning has never been adhered to for lack of support from the Ministry of Defense. And this, I look upon, it is of course not his direct responsibility. The chief cannot be held responsible. There are other levels of command after him, but that is a matter of detail. This, I call it a gesture of despair by the head of a service, which has been accepted. And I think the person...
General Choudhry, are you suggesting that it should have been the Minister of Defence instead who should have resigned?
I am clearly suggesting it should have been the Defence Secretary and the Defence Minister who should have resigned, if this resignation has to have any meaning.
General Rao Choudhry, this is unprecedented. A service chief, quitting, taking moral responsibility. You don't see that sort of thing happening definitely in the political class. Are you worried though, sir, speaking specifically about the several boards of inquiry that are currently on, the morale issues within the Navy, and of course the overwhelming safety concerns that exist at this time? Are you worried that the Ministry of Defence is going to be in charge now and there's going to be more trouble?
I don't know about the unity of the country. That is a political matter. It's election year. But what I'm definitely saying once again, that this is an unprecedented demonstration of the values of the service. It is a cry of despair from one service. And if you investigate closely, all other services are in the same situation. And if this this self-sacrifice. If this sacrifice has to have any effect, the bureaucracy and the ministers associated with the structure must also go.
General Choudhry, those are very strong remarks. Are you suggesting at this point that with this kind of move, the finger is clearly pointing at AK Antony to take the next step, to take moral responsibility for what has happened, for the inefficiency in passing contracts that the Navy needs?
There is a precedent there, Lal Bahadur Shastri. I think the minister must take responsibility for it.
General Rajodji, just stay with me for a moment. Air Chief Marshal Fali Major, former Chief of the Air Staff, is also live with us on the phone line. Air Chief Major, thanks for joining us this evening on this very distressing, top story that we're bringing to our viewers this evening. Your opening reaction when you heard about Admiral Joshi quitting, taking moral responsibility, sir?
I have just walked into my house.
Yes.
And I just saw about 5 minutes back this TV flash. I'm not aware of the details whatsoever. So it will be wrong on my part to comment on anything as to why he is resigned. And I'll have to check what is happening. Honestly, I just came in, walked in, and I saw this.
Yeah, sir. Let me just read out for you. The press statement that's been put out by the Indian Ministry of Defence. They've said that Admiral DK Joshi, taking moral responsibility for the recent spate of accidents, has submitted his resignation. The Indian Ministry of Defence has accepted his resignation with immediate effect. The Vice Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Robin Dhovan, will take over charge as acting Navy Chief until an official Chief of Navy Staff is appointed. That's a verbatim a reproduction of the statement that's been put out by the Ministry of Defence, sir. So it's on taking moral responsibility is what the Ministry of Defence says, sir.
If the Naval Chief has taken moral responsibility and has resigned, I think he has set a precedence which nobody so far has.
Do you think this has any implications as far as the Navy itself is concerned, Air Chief Major? Because there are people on our panel right now, including Admiral Raja Menon, who says that Admiral DK Joshi has been made a scapegoat by the government, Air Chief.
As I said, I've just walked in, and till such time you read out this press brief, I was unaware of this, so it would be wrong on my part to comment on this. But I would say that if he's taken moral responsibility and he has resigned, I think it is absolutely unprecedented. Thank you.
Air Chief Major, request you to stay on with us. We have former Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral Suresh Mehta, also with us. Admiral Mehta, a distressing day as far as the Navy is concerned. What was your first reaction when you heard that one of your successors, Admiral DK Joshi, has just put in his papers, sir?
No, I didn't get that clearly. Your line is a little weak.
Admiral Mehta, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Yeah.
Sir, your reaction when you heard about Admiral Joshi putting in his papers, taking moral responsibility, sir?
Yeah. Well, this is of course in the highest traditions of the military that we say we must take moral responsibility. But I think there is every reason to go down and find out where exactly the problem lies. Because the chief is of course overall responsible for everything that happens in the Navy, but we have independent commanders all over, and there are independent commanding officers below that, and the responsibility really is over there. But in his very forthright manner, he has decided to take this particular step, and I suppose that's all there is to it.
Do you worry about the impact this could have on the Navy itself, Admiral Mehta?
No, it will not have any negative impact. If anything, it shows the highest leadership quality that he has taken responsibility. But the fact, as comes out, that one must not make a scapegoat of it. I mean, it would be his correct step to have offered to resign, but I would have thought that the ministry, that the defense minister would take a different view on it.
Admiral Mehta, that's precisely a point that we've been getting from several people we've been speaking to, who say that the Ministry of Defense has taken the shortcut, the easy way out by actually accepting Admiral Joshi's resignation. General Shankar Roy Choudhry, former Chief of Army Staff, just said that, by resigning, Admiral DK Joshi has made an unprecedented demonstration of the values of service, which is self-sacrifice, and that basically Admiral DK Joshi has been made a scapegoat in this entire affair. Do you agree with that, sir?
I have not heard General Shankar Roy Choudhry, but yes, I concur with these kind of views. And that's precisely what I am also saying, that there should have been better sense somewhere else to not go into it in such a hurry.
Admiral Mehta, what is your assessment of of the last 6 months, the last 12 months in the Navy? There has been unprecedented scrutiny of not just these incidents and accidents, but also questions that have been raised about procedures, about training, about about standard operating procedures, even about things like discipline and leadership. As a former Chief of Naval Staff, what is your assessment of the scrutiny that's been put in a very glaring manner on the Indian Navy in the last 1 year that has led up to the resignation of the Chief of Naval Staff, sir?
Well, I guess this has brought about a lot of pressure on him, but these are not things that happen in a day. It takes time. I mean, and he has not been in the chair for what, about a year and a half or thereabouts?
Yes.
We are now in 2011, 13. Yeah, he's not yet 11 to 13. Okay, whatever, 2 years, not yet 2. But things, if they are at this kind of a state, it is probably an inheritance from somewhere, if it is not under control. But that is not the issue. The point is that we live in a service which from day to day, there are enough risks that have to be taken. And therefore, when things go wrong, that they happen so close to each other is probably just a coincidence. You cannot say that, nothing is working in the Navy or nobody knows his job. That cannot possibly happen in a span of this kind. In fact, the people coming out, the training methodologies in force today, the checks and balances that we have in place are of a very high order. If the checks and balances have not been followed at some point in time, then the responsibility lies over there.
Admiral Mehta, several thousands of officers and personnel in the Navy right now, will be experiencing a sense of confusion. They'll be looking for answers. As a former Chief of Naval Staff, what would be your message to them on this, admittedly very difficult day, sir?
Well, this is difficult, but everybody will only look at it that, he has taken personal moral responsibility, and therefore that is in the highest tradition. But, of course, the service will come out of it in whichever manner. It will set the alarm bells ringing everywhere that, it is something very serious, and therefore we need to make sure that we avoid or, get our act right.
Admiral Suresh
Mehta, I believe
yeah.
that it has got to do a lot at the field level. Does not happen at naval headquarters. There are independent commanders who take their own decisions, who are responsible for these things, and who take their own decisions. And that is how the armed forces run.
Admiral Suresh Mehta, hope you can stay on with us. We're going to discuss this story a little further. Time for a very quick break. We're also going to get a live report from the naval headquarters, from our reporters, as well as an update on the INS Sindhuratna incident in Mumbai in a short while. Quick break, back in 2 minutes.